Thank you, Mr President. I wish to ask the Minister for Environment, Food and Agriculture what plans his department has to replace the Building Control Act 1991.
Calling the Minister, Mr Butt, to reply.
Thank you, Mr President. There are no plans to replace the Building Control Act 1991. There are plans to amend and update the Building Regulations 2014 and the associated approved documents order, and I intend to make an announcement in Tynwald later today on this subject. The areas for consideration include increased air tightness for buildings, the potential for energy performance certificates, provision of electric charging points, ducts for high-speed cabling, certification of fire alarm installation. The proposals are to meet our commitments in the programme for government for making homes and businesses more energy efficient.
Supplementary, Mr Ashford.
Thank you, Mr President. And can I start by welcoming the fact that the regulations are going to be updated, but would the Minister accept that this Act is now 26 years old, rapidly about to turn 27 years old? And in relation to Section 24 of that Act, which deals with neglected, dilapidated and ruinous properties, could the Minister confirm if that is going to be looked at? Because at the moment, while there is a very firm definition of ruinous, there is not any real definition of dilapidated or neglected, and this is causing serious problems for enforcement against those types of properties. Will the Minister be looking at that?
Thank you, Mr President. I am not familiar with Section 24, and I'm very happy to take that back to the Department and examine the same. But I am also aware that there are problems with ruinous buildings, although I do recall that some legislation enabled local authorities to take action against such buildings.
Mr Ashford.
Thank you, Mr President, and the legislation is Section 24 of that Act. While the Minister is going to take it back, would he also look particularly at that and the way that the section notice procedure works? Because under the Act at the moment, once it is in the court process or in the process of going to court, then the notice can't be amended. So should something else happen to a property, a new notice has to be issued and the process has to be started all over again. So will the Minister look at that at the same time?
Mr Butt.
I'm very happy to commit to do so.
Honourable Member for Garth, Mrs Kane.
Thank you, Mr President. Can I ask the Minister if he will consider, is the Department considering increasing the standards of energy efficiency required for new buildings and forcing up the standards on the island?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Our standards are already well in excess of those in the UK, but yes, we are looking at the standards, and consultation will take place to see whether there is an appetite to further increase the standards that we apply.
Further supplementary, Mrs Kane.
I thank the Minister for that answer. I'm also minded with the recent publicity of the opening of the inquiry into the Grenfell fire tragedy to ask the Minister, does the Department keep monitoring what comes out of that inquiry, and does he anticipate any changes to the building control regulations as a result of the inquiry into the Grenfell fire?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, once again, I have to say that we are in advance of the UK with our building regulations, and we already mandate sprinklers and fire alarm systems in flats. But it's safe to say that we don't have any high-rise buildings of a similar nature to Grenfell Towers. Yes, we will be monitoring the outcome from the inquiry, and if there are recommendations that are relevant to our buildings in the Isle of Man, these will be taken on board.